Our current project, apart from this one, is a project called Them and Us, which is a mixture of a computer game and a live performance show. It's as yet unfinished, but we've had some research and development money, and it looks at how we can build a sort of live mass participation Wii game is what we've described it, with an audience of about 20 to 30 people and us trapped in a room to create a live interactive experience.
It kind of relates to this project because we're really intrigued by this idea of pitching ourselves as artists or our ideas against an audience, and then how we can potentially blur that barrier between the two. We really like the idea that an audience sits in a booth and becomes the performer, and so we were interested in seeing how that could actually turn into a kind of theatrical computer game. So as we were developing this project, we've been thinking about our latest project, and they feed each other. We have quite a lot of discussions about not so much our role, but how we create our work, and then I suppose our role within the creation of our artworks, because we tend to see ourselves as kind of directors or facilitators of an interactive experience. So you're trying to encourage people to participate and interact themselves, and in a way we're trying to hand over an idea that we've structured and then see what happens to it once it becomes once it's in the hands of the audience, I suppose. I don't know, does that answer that?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it's like in terms of a role in society, a sort of difficult to answer. I did have an answer for this a while ago, but I had to spoke to somebody else. But,
I mean, you know, I wouldn't ever try and define what an artist's role is in society to other artists, because I think everyone's got a different opinion. But I would like to think that by giving perspectives, maybe a different perspective to the way you see the world, and then because we work in an area of interactivity, you're creating a space for people to discuss and explore what that could be, what these different perspectives are. Then I think that's a very important role in society that I would fight for, actually, because I think there's not enough value put on artists and looking at the world differently.
A lot of our work is generative, so a lot of the work, as we said before, a lot of the work has some contribution from the audience, the people who see it, to a greater or lesser extent. So sometimes, as in this piece, a lot of the work is actually created by the people who visit it, but sometimes it's at a smaller level, and it might just be that they add words, or that they just add to it by being in the same space as the work. And I've completely forgotten the question. Of course.
How do you gauge the success of the work?
All right. So we've always been very interested in the fact that the success is very much based upon whether we think the people who are viewing it or taking part in it are getting some element of value from it, whether that's just from a simple pleasure point of view, that we see them laughing when they're taking part in it, or crying, which I don't think has ever happened, but that they get some sort of sense of an experience from it. And so we've always been very keen to see how our audience feels about the work. So that includes us actually asking them, do you get something from this work? So we've never been artists who sort of walk away from, make a bit of work, put it somewhere, and then walk away from it. We tend to come back and engage with our audience. So the success is very much to do with our relationship with the audience that we're making it for. So we are interested in improving work based upon how it works with the audience. So
I think also, actually, particularly with this work, you can actually see what people think of it because you're filming them. So you get people smiling and laughing, or you get someone say, "Oh, this is rubbish," I don't understand, or whatever. And one of the things that was really lovely feedback was when we showed this in Newcastle at the Hatton Gallery. One of the security guards came in and at sort of 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you can tell because the film's time-stamped, and did a broadcast while he was setting up. Unfortunately, the microphone was switched off overnight, so we didn't get to hear it. But what was nice is he brought all the other security guards back, and on their rounds they were coming in and doing a broadcast, putting silly wigs on. And so things like that, it's kind of implicit in the work, being able to see whether people actually enjoy it. So we're quite keen on that, whether it's sort of using how engaged people are as actually the work itself.
Staging, directness and truth. Staging to us, it's quite important because a lot of our work deals in some way with a particular situation or a particular location. So a lot of the work is about a particular place that it's situated in. Even when we're doing something here in a more conventional gallery space, we're still concerned with the fact of how it will look, because it's generated by the audience, how the audience will perceive that space.
And the remote space as well. Often we're dealing with real space and remote space, virtual space, whatever you want to call it, at the same time. So that kind of becomes a staging in itself, because we're trying to relate these two places together.
And I suppose in relation to directness and truth, the problem with media work, and I think a lot of media artists may or may not agree with this, is that there is suddenly this mediation, the fact that you are often hidden behind a screen or behind a set of code or behind a set of programs, means that in a way it sometimes doesn't feel that direct. So we've always been trying to find ways to be more direct with that, to make that this cold physical thing of a computer feel warmer and therefore feel more open to the person who's taking part in it. So maybe that by opening up that screen, opening up this computer, we're creating some sort of element of truth, sort of, or that the truth of the work that we originally thought of on paper is still there when it's been turned and programmed and fiddled around with, and all the maths has been put into it, and hopefully it's still there, because I always find being a media artist is that struggle between the science of programming and the sort of the looseness of being an artist, and a saying that I saw recently that magic is everything that science hasn't made boring yet. So I hope that the work isn't too sciencey and that it's become boring, and that it still has that magic to it, so, which I see as truth.
Often a lot, because I suppose if it's a generative piece of artwork, then you don't know what's going to happen. So you don't know if someone's going to fall over the microphone, for instance, while they're in the booth. But on a good sense, you don't know, like with the situation with the security guards, you don't expect something like that to happen either. So it's really important, and it's really lovely, and in some ways, what Matt was talking about the magic, that's how the magic happens, because you're leaving yourself open to chance and reinterpretation. You're handing over a set of ideas that you've got and saying, okay, let's see where this goes.
Sometimes it's quite nice because there are the chance that, like, some things you'll get somebody to come into this booth particularly, and they'll sit there, look at the screen, look completely confused, and then walk straight out. So, and sometimes, like Rachel will say to me, I don't know whether we should include that because it doesn't. They're not really doing anything. It's not really working. But then in some way, I quite like the fact that they're being asked this question and they've just sort of like given up and turned their back on this supposedly serious celebrity question. And that's quite nice. There's something quite nice about that. It's like
there's quite beautiful portraits of people. In a way, going back to inspiration, which we didn't mention, was we're quite inspired by Andy Warhol and his films, and this idea that you're just making portraits of people, and people in a gallery, and people being interrogated or interviewed, depending on how they're seeing it. And that in itself is quite lovely and quite interesting. And I could watch them for hours, because you're getting to see something about someone that they've actually been willing and happy to walk in that booth and reveal to you, even if it is someone just staring at the screen like that.
Thank you, Cornerhouse, and good night.
Thank you.